Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality. While listening, you'll be exposed to inspiring, empowering, and unifying perspectives that I'm highly confident will yield stellar results in your life if you opt to try them on for size. Also, at optimistic.tv, we have officially begun releasing the first few episodes of our new late-night style, consciousness-elevating video variety talk show, Optimistic, which features live visionary art, soul share interviews, retreat guests here at the Mystic Manor, as well as live musical performances. I'm also super excited to announce that we are currently making plans to release the rest of Season 1 on my personal favorite online streaming service. So stay tuned to optimistic.tv to follow the unfolding development of this exciting Optimistic expansion, as we'll be posting more info and release dates there soon. And in the meantime, be sure to check out, of course, the first few episodes at optimistic.tv as well. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have my very good friend Daniel Boutros here with me on the show. Dan is an Emmy-nominated video game producer turned Mysticism De-Mystifier, who is going to share insights into some of the things he has learned on his epic journey to becoming a healer and energy worker. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hello, mate. Thanks for having me.
It makes so much sense that you landed here at the Mystic Manor as a Mysticism Demystifier.
Yes.
Many moons ago.
Yeah, God, how long ago was it?
I don't know.
I think it was for the first time I came here was Durek's book launch.
Ah, Shaman Durek.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. He's been on the show multiple times. If you guys haven't heard Shaman Durek episodes, go back and listen. Man, he's quite the character.
He knows his stuff, and yeah, he's a good laugh.
Yeah. he's a good lot of things.
Yeah.
You will not be bored. So yeah, I have a great story with him. Actually, something we'll get into a little bit, relating to like spirits and possession and that sort of stuff. And my first time having him on the show. We'll get to that in a minute. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I like to always, Dan, start with a very predictable opening question.
Okay.
And I also have a very cliche closing question.
Excellent.
So go ahead and prepare you.
Okay.
The opening question is this.
Right.
You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You got 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Okay. If I fancy her, it's her.
Okay, fair enough. I like this.
If I don't have that much passion for her, for whatever reason, then I would say it's figuring out all the things that we've been told are real that aren't real, and what is actually real. And even that question's kind of tied my head in a bunch of knots, because even the idea of what's real and how to quantify that has been completely shattered into pieces as part of the thing I've been buggering about.
Well, yeah. So the word believe has the word lie in it. Right?
Good point. Yeah.
It's like I've heard it said that for every truth, there's a bit of untruth in it.
Yeah.
And even, how reality in general is sort of, there's this element of falseness from one, like for example, you and I are playing like we're these human beings in these meat suits right now, when really that's a disguise.
Yes.
Or a butterfly that has the big, what looks like eyeballs on the back of its wings, when it's really just like a way for it to camouflage itself and scare off predators. Like there's that thread running all through nature, right?
Right, yeah.
Right down to us. We're, I'm not this character Brandon Beecham. I am playing this character Brandon Beecham, but I'm much more than that, I believe.
Right.
I think you've probably come to the same conclusion in your journey and what I loved and where we really bonded when we first met was, I really relate to people like yourself who have had a firm foot planted in the the matrix, right?
Right.
The normal
Yes.
quote unquote world, and then say, okay, I'm going deep down the rabbit hole, and you definitely did that. So I'd love, just to give the listener some context, maybe you
Sure.
can share a little bit about that journey and your backstory, and how you went from video game producer to mysticism demystifier. I love that. Just give us some whatever feels relevant.
Cool. All right. So a long time, I'd always been fascinated by this stuff, but I never really had a support system or anything like that to guide me. And I think the closest I came to it was this modality called Saj Yoga, which is where it's more of a meditational based yoga, but transcendental meditation, meaning you're focusing on energy rather than, breathing and oming and things like that. Mm-hmm. I didn't really get a good handle on it. I think I left after one session. Mm-hmm. Just because I didn't feel like they were giving me real information. It was very fluffy, So my next gateway into that stuff was Kung Fu movies, Shaolin monks with spears in their throats, all that kind of stuff. Loved it. Wanted to learn that. I found out there was a guy called Grandmaster 2 in Arcadia who is known for pulling buses with his penis.
What?
Yeah. So I wanted to go learn from him because, like all of this stuff.
That was your beginning? I want to learn how to pull a bus with my penis?
I wanted to find people who could do steel jacket kung fu, right?
Okay, fair.
But, I figure if you've got a steel...
You really went deep down the rabbit hole from the get-go.
Yeah.
Woo, I don't know if I'll ever get there.
Hey, man, he's in Arcadia.
I'll let you tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go, but he wanted... he's the kind of teacher who's like, no, you must commit to a year. And I'm like, mate, I want to know if it's going to tear off.
Yeah.
I want to know if I'm built for this. So he wouldn't even let me come and just do one session. So I had to say, no, thank you. But
your penis thanks you to this day.
It really is. It's still attached, thankfully. There's no deformities. I'm very happy about that. So I tried to find, ways into this world, and then it turned out the real way in was, or the way in that came to me, I tried Reiki, and that really didn't do it for me. And the real way in was that I ended up in a relationship with a girl who learned witchcraft off her dad a long, long time ago, or a stepdad. And we were together about 1.5 years before she fully came out of the broom closet, and the story with her was a fucking trip.
Right in time for Halloween.
Oh,
Dan, you're just on point.
So, she... God, what happened? So we went... we were in bed together, and I grabbed her hands, and I went, hold on, your hands are buzzing this really warm energy. Mm-hmm. I want to practice this Reiki stuff I've just picked up. Let's go together to this group Reiki thing. Mm-hmm. And she was kind of hiding her, dislike of hippies and things like that.
Okay, fair enough.
She was very anti-hippie. So we went to this group thing, and, there was like 20 people around a room, and it was a very crammed room with these 2 little tables, and the lady running the place goes, okay, who wants to be the first subject? And I'm looking around, and nobody's volunteering. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll go.
Yep.
So I lay down. And, my girlfriend at the time, she starts putting her hands over me, and then she has this surprise shock expression, and she runs out the fucking room.
Wow.
Here's where it gets really weird. I knew exactly what she was going to tell me, and it was about something I'd never told anyone else in my life.
What?
Yeah, it was the weirdest fucking experience. So I go to the balcony, and I'm like, there's this, it's like I feel like I'm creeping over slowly. And I go to her, so what's wrong? What's happening here? And she goes, if I tell you, you're not going to believe me. It's just going to sound like madness. And I go, I have a feeling I think I know what you're going to tell me. Mm-hmm. She goes, all right. She goes, there's this thing that you've had with you since you were a kid. And there's the way you see it. And there's the way other people with a certain ability would see it. And the way I see it is if you still have this thing with you, you're going to be dead in 2 years.
Whoa.
And I go... fucking hell, all right. And I knew exactly what she was talking about. And she goes, one of the things she gave me to kind of let me know my, whatever that intuition was that I had was on the money, was that she said, she used to draw this, she says, you used to draw this in your notebooks all the time in school. And I'm all like, fucking hell, she knows exactly that this is all lining up. So, and I tell her, I've actually got one of the drawings with me in the house because I moved some of my stuff from England to LA. And I've got this binder, and sure enough, there's this fucking drawing. And what it was when I was a kid, I went through, I lived in a fairly violent environment for a period of time. And I used to imagine transferring my pain to an imaginary friend.
Whoa.
And I learned to do this as a kid. Right, so I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And later on, through Shaman Durek, I learned that this is what shamans call a protector spirit, where you create a spirit to protect you from feeling certain things.
Wow.
But I'd had it all the way into my 30s, and I think I was 29 or 30 at the time this happened. And the problem is that it had then evolved to limit my emotional awareness. So I had at the time a psychological condition called alexithymia, which is they shorthand it as corruption of the emotions, and it's when your emotions run through like basically 4 or 5 circuits. So I didn't even know what anxiety was. Friends of mine would tell me they feel anxious, and I'd go, "Are you some kind of bitch?" I had no empathy, no ability to empathize with that.
Wow.
And it weirded some of my friends out, but they never told me until after. So yeah, after Rach finds this thing in me, I go, "All right, what the fuck do you want to do?" She goes, "I know exactly what to do. We're going to go to a witch shop. We're going to get some candles, and I'm going to do a thing." All right.
So can I pause you for a second?
You can.
So this thing, you'd given all of your emotional pain throughout your childhood to this imaginary friend, spirit. What did you call it? Guardian spirit?
Durek framed it to me as a protector spirit.
Protector spirit. So, but now what she was perceiving during the Reiki session was this thing actually was going to come home to roost, so to speak, and like bring how would it kill you within 2 years?
Oh, I see. Okay. So the problem was I had a rage issue.
Okay.
So if something triggered me, it would be like I was drunk for 2 days.
Wow.
It was the weirdest thing.
Wow.
And obviously she was very concerned about that.
Wild for me to think of, because the year or so I've known you, I've never seen you anything but like jovial.
Yeah. I was not jovial then. No. I was like, she used to say, she was like, it's like dating Jekyll and Hyde.
Right.
Which is a really, like now, hearing that, it's like, that's a big fucking statement.
Yeah.
That ain't some easy shit.
Yeah.
And thank fuck I feel distant from it now. But God, like back then, I remember how it was like being, as soon as I'd go into that rage place, it was like I was drunk or high straight for 2 days, but in a really shit way.
Yeah. Not a good buzz.
And the part where she was saying it's going to kill you, that was more about the rage itself becoming, becoming a manifestation.
Yeah.
Exactly, like a cancer or something. And I could see that very much being a possibility at the time. But yeah, we got candles. She was like, pick a candle. So I'm like fondling around, and then one of the candles burns me, but it's not lit. So she goes, right, that's the one.
Whoa.
So I pulled it out and it said spell reversal, which I didn't understand at the time. So I thought, who put a spell on me? What the hell is this? Turns out it was me.
Yeah, I was about to say, you did it to yourself, right?
Exactly. So we grabbed a protection candle. She did a whole thing. And then that night I had the fucking craziest dream of my life.
Really?
Yeah. She called in 5 particular deities as part of that working. And I'd not heard of them. My experience with gods and goddesses was basically the Egyptian gods and goddesses because of movies and obsessions I had as a kid, and God of War. So I knew of Kratos, and I knew of Zeus from Xena Warrior Princess.
Yeah, right.
That was it.
Yep.
She was calling in Hecate, Kanunos, Hathor, Pan, and Diana, Selene. I'm like, I don't know who. I've never heard of these. Right, fine, whatever. Go to bed. And at night, bam, I'm in the dream. And in the dream, I open my eyes and there's a big fuck off full moon. Underneath the full moon is my tiny cat Isis. And she really is tiny. She's like this, like barely a foot. And I'm staring down the hallway. I blink in the dream. Isis has transformed into a tiny hooded woman.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going, okay. I blink again. She's teleported now, about 6 feet closer, kind of like a horror movie.
Oh, jeez.
The weird part is I'm feeling safe but scared. Blink again. She's right next to me.
Ooh.
She's about 4 foot high. I can't see her face. She's just a hood.
Ooh.
Blink again. Her hand's in my stomach.
Oh.
And I'm shivering. I'm going, what the fuck is happening? This is really weird. But it feels good, but it feels weird. I wake up. And my entire stomach is buzzing.
Wow.
And I'm sort of getting used to these new feelings because it's the first time I've ever had anything that profound.
Right.
I go out into the living room and I just start breaking down and crying because I realize there's no negative thoughts in my head.
Wow.
And what I'd been dealing with constantly in my mind was a constant stream of negative thought.
Wow.
And I thought it would never go off. I fundamentally believed that I was a bad person learning how to be a good person because of the violence, the frequency of these thoughts constantly cycling in my head.
Wow.
Yeah. So it really,
I've never heard, you haven't ever shared too much of that with me. I mean, and it's just wild to know you the way I do. Is this like very jovial, very loving, very funny, fun spirit. So you did something right with this journey.
Yeah.
Interesting. So let's share, if you would, you were, fully immersed in, the world of producing video games, working on with big companies, big titles, all that stuff. And when you how long ago did you make the break from doing that to go fully down the path of learning all the, energy work and healing modality stuff that you do?
So after that experience with Rach, who's now ex-wife, she would start teaching me certain things, like basically ritual-based stuff. And then we would start working on each other, and I would just start exploring. And she had her own thing going on, and I met Shaman Durek. And by the time it got to 2017, which is when I made the break, I had all this knowledge kind of ready to play with, but I felt like I had these huge gaps, and I wanted to explore because there were things that Rachel and I did not agree on in the world of energy work as this was going on. And that was like 7 years before the break. So at that time, I knew I was not in a good place. I'd just gone through 3 years of really rough stuff in a marriage that was falling apart, and 3 deaths of my animals, which that was the bit that really kicked my ass.
Wow.
And I knew I want to be in a relationship again, but I'm definitely going to be a shit show unless I go and take care of all this stuff. And I don't want to be throwing this on another person.
Yeah.
I need to get my shit together before I get into anything. So that was kind of that was the biggest motivator deep down. But the other motivator, and they kind of, they're married in a way, is that I wanted to learn this stuff, but without the fluffy stuff, without any of the ambiguity. There's a lot of spirit workers you work with who are just like, do this and just trust the spirits. It's like, all right, but who are the spirits? And who do they serve? And can you teach me how to communicate with them so I'm not just going off on your word?
Yeah.
Because I've also experienced a lot of dodgy practitioners who are just trying to start a cult involving you, right?
And you're the number one fan.
Yeah, exactly.
First supporter.
Yeah. Oh, look, your right-hand person happens to be absurdly wealthy. Oh, isn't that interesting? Huh.
That's funny.
Yeah, very common pattern. So I decided at that point, look, I love video games, but they're not really the brain food I want anymore.
Yeah.
I loved all the twitchy stuff and so forth, but I'd always known from a young age I was going to make video games that were beyond what we have right now. And to deliver that, I have to know my shit about this world.
Yeah.
So I threw myself in it wholeheartedly, found out my mum was learning how to be a healer from her great-granddad. He was a Maronite monk. He'd learned how to do healings. He gave her an exorcism prayer, taught her how to do that. All of this random shit I did not know until I started on this journey.
Wow.
And I was, 39 or 40 when that happened.
Wow.
Yeah, she hid it all from me.
Wow.
He used to channel spirits through all of that stuff. But that was really the big... I needed to find out everything.
Well, why don't you share a little bit of some of the things? So you've went around and you've actually studied energy work, various healing modalities from a bunch of different people, right? So why don't you want to give us some highlights of some of the things you've studied and who, maybe the best of,
Sure.
of your experiences, because I know you've done a lot.
Yeah, it's been quite a bit, and I still feel like you still feel like you know nothing. You know what I mean? It's really weird.
Well, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know, right?
Yeah. And actually one of the most interesting practitioners I met is this lady called Jill Peirce. Mm-hmm. I went to a couple of sessions with her. She went and studied in Tibet for many, many years. She studied in India for many years, and Tibetan shamanism is her main thing. What she really works on is teaching people how to do throat singing. I missed that class, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to go because it is really bloody powerful. You get everyone unifying in that sound, and it's like you sync up with each other, and your hearts are open to each other. And if you're in a ceremonial healing circle, like a family constellation, are you familiar with those?
I've heard about this. Okay. Yeah. Is this where family constellation where you can bring through one of your ancestors, like if you had a problem with your great-grandfather or grandfather or something, and then they can come and be embodied in someone else, and you actually communicate with that spirit? Am I confusing this with something else?
I think that's actually an aspect of it. Okay. I think that you can ask for that specific treatment, but typically how I've seen it, like the ones that I've been to that are the most effective, and there's actually one down the road that's really bloody powerful. They have a group of people, and the person in the middle just says, "This is the thing I'm struggling with in life." And then the space holder, ceremonial runner, whatever you want to call them, blasts it out to the group, and then the group starts going, I'm feeling this right now, and I feel like I need to go over here. Okay, you go do that. And then people start to say all these things they're feeling and seeing, and by the end of that thing, you have a bunch of people piled out that create a story that they have no way of knowing. And then the story is sort of decoded by the shaman and the person who's in the center, and they have this really powerful healing ratification where they realize, holy crap, this thing that I've been dealing with is actually to do with all of this stuff that my ancestors were involved in, or the land I lived in was involved in. Because one of the things that the Toltecs teach is that you have trauma from the land that you were born in.
Oh, wow.
And they actually assign a chakra to that.
Oh, wow.
So the Toltecs, and this goes to the thing that you asked. One of my favorite things about them is that they have this idea of dreams as just a reality of all aspects is dream. But there are variants of dream. So the one we're in right now, where we're interacting, we're in the waking dream. Right? And the waking dream, according to Toltec, is the Nahual chakra, which is the navel, filtered through the tonal chakra, which is the intellectual, where we have our third eye. And then the sleeping dream is the reverse. It's the intellectual filtered through the emotional, right? Which makes a hell of a lot of sense when you try and decode your dreams, because if you try and decode your dreams with your mind, good luck. But if you sit in the dream, the memory of the dream, and you feel it emotionally, without getting your brain trying to box everything, you get the real meaning of it. I think we were even talking about that the other day. Someone said they had a dream where someone came and attacked them. And, that sounds like a pretty meat and potatoes dream, like pretty easy to understand. But it's like, okay, what did you feel like with the attack? And I can't remember what they said. But what I do recall is that they recontextualized it and went, oh, it's not about attack at all. It's about this other thing. Oh, my God, it all makes sense now.
Yeah. Right.
So the Toltec chakras, they have their waking chakras and their sleeping chakras. The waking ones are very similar to ours, except their power center is the throat, which, aligns with South America culturally. It's a very vocal, passionate stereotype associated with that part of the world. But, there's a lot of power in speaking and speaking your truth and all of that. So that it all makes sense on that aspect.
Cool.
But the sleepy stuff, you've got one shoulder for ancestral, wounds, one shoulder for living bloodline wounds. You've got an aggregate chakra for all your waking chakras. So it's like it does them, I guess it does them all at once if you work on that. You got your fingertips, which I believe is for psychic surgery. I'm not sure why that is activated in the dream space, but you know, I haven't learnt beyond that yet. And the tailbone is the wounds of the land that you carry. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
it's so fascinating to think like everything is encoded within our body, you know. Same way we've seen, you know, right down to trauma or any sort of issues or blockages that now we can see are actually manifesting as, you know, something. It's just wild how it's all just reflections of the same stuff.
Yeah. It's nuts, man. I'm still trying to figure out what was going on with Lily downstairs, you know. But she's totally fine.
Oh, right. Yeah. Someone here who had a crazy stomach pains and we were like ulcers, had to go to the hospital, goes to the hospital, finds out like basically you're completely fine. There's no ulcer. There's no issue. And, you know, and now her symptoms are completely gone.
Yeah.
So it's like, there's something going on there beyond what modern medicine really knows or understands.
Yeah. It was a trip. She was throwing up blood too.
Wow. Yeah. And they said nothing wrong in the hospital.
Zero.
What?
Yeah. Very bizarre.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a quick moment to tell you about our new sponsor, Features. If you pay attention when you watch any of the episodes of my variety talk show, Optimistic, you'll notice that I typically take my shoes off at some point during the interview portion, and it quickly becomes very obvious I am a huge fan of fun, funky, colorful socks. So when Features originally reached out to me, I was super excited because I instantly loved the way they looked, which used to be all I mainly cared about in a sock. But after actually wearing them, I realized there is a really good reason runners and golfers are increasingly making Features their sock of choice above and beyond their excellent style. As we talk about consistently on the show, small changes can make a huge difference, and upgrading to Features has definitely been an upgrade for me. Features have been engineered with targeted compression and an excellent design that keep them from bunching, slipping, and sliding into your shoe. I absolutely love the unique cut of the Elite golf socks and the anatomical design of all their styles because they actually conform to the left and right shape of your feet, creating an enhanced, custom-like fit that reduces discomfort and prevents blisters. They're also so durable and long-lasting that if you're unsatisfied at any point, they'll give you a replacement pair, no questions asked, lifetime guaranteed. And I can guarantee if you guys take advantage of the $10 off offer on your first pair at features.com when you use the code POSITIVEHEAD, that they will change how you feel about socks forever too. Once again, that's Features spelled FEETURES.com. Promo code POSITIVEHEAD, all one word, to receive $10 off your first pair. Well, why don't we shift to that a little bit, because I know as you've done your studies, you've seen a lot of different, modalities and healing experiences, been either a part of them or witnessed them. Mm-hmm. Any fun ones that you care to share?
Fun ones.
Most profound?
Most profound. Okay, I'd say the most profound has been Toltec for me, because I've seen it from multiple angles from different teachers. One teacher was a lady in London called Ercilia. She's brilliant. She learned from some guy called Miguel, and I wish I could remember his surname, but I don't think it's
Don Miguel Ruiz?
No, I don't think it's that guy.
Okay. Yeah.
I like his book.
Four Agreements.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had his son on the show, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
And what's the woman's name who co-wrote a book with him, too? Shoot, I'm going blank, but yeah.
Is it the one who was mentioned in the Book of Dreaming?
I think so, yeah.
Or The Art of Dreaming?
Yes.
The one who read that.
The one who co-wrote.
Okay.
If I'm recalling.
Okay.
It's been a few years, so.
I love The Art of Dreaming, but I remember he was always hyping up this girl in there. So if that's the girl who co-wrote it with him.
I think so.
Okay, cool.
If I recall.
All right. Yeah, I want to read that book now. But anyway, okay. So Toltec, there's the perspective that I've just shared with you, which is very much on the energetic side of things. And what I really valued was how they had specific codes and translations for energies that are completely different, or just different enough in Ayurveda and Tibetan and some of the other ones. For them, red is a really strong healing color. So one of the practices that I was taught was that there are different layers of dreaming, or different zones. Right? And it's like someone made a video game world and they teach you how to access it. And one of the zones is your safe space. Right? And you go you transform as your spirit animal, and you go to this safe space and you call in the red color. Right? And it's like one of those red light machines, and red isn't typically associated as a healing color.
It's funny because that was always my favorite color, I would say, as a child, and it's my mom's favorite color. So, but not typically one that people choose.
Yeah. And not for healing.
Yeah.
So for them, it's red. It's absolutely red. Red is the color. And that lines up with physical science. Like those Russian lights. And I just thought that was an interesting map.
Yeah.
I've rarely seen that kind of association with an energy system and a physical system.
Science and yeah.
And theirs was the first system that taught me that you could carry trauma from the lands you were born, and ancestral wounds and things like that. It's a very deep shamanic system. It's like, for me, Ayurveda is like a Mac and Toltec is like a PC, where you can go in and do all kinds of crazy nerding out.
Yeah.
So I loved it for that. But where I saw the other side of it, there's this fella I met in Nevada, and he's a shaman. And I don't know if he even wants his name mentioned, so I won't mention his name. He learned off a lady who trained the FBI, a lady whose shamanic name is Cloud. I don't know what her other name is. And she was teaching the idea of Toltec from the perspective of mind control for the purpose of inducing a healing. Which I thought was, wow, that's dark as fuck, but that's really, really useful.
Right.
And they described these wounds, like the biggest wounds you can do to someone, which, I love this. Disassociation is the number one, the top thing someone can do to themselves to harm themselves.
Really?
Yeah. Disassociation.
Interesting.
And that's one of the things that we commonly learn by reflex to avoid something traumatic, right? And we disassociate with it. And then when we get back into the environment with something that triggers that, how cold and disconnected and unable to be, empathetic.
Empathetic?
Thank you. How hard is it to be that? So. Yeah, to hear that was interesting because I was able to look back and go, shit, yeah, I'm actually hurting myself when I do that. Even though I think I'm protecting myself, I'm not being present with the energy, getting what I need to learn from it, and
it's avoidance instead of the only way through something is through it, and so much of our natural instinct especially when we're not that aware of all of this sort of stuff is protect, shield, protect, cut off the emotions, and then that ends up being the real wound, right?
Yeah, totally. Because then you can't connect to that energy anymore because you've demonized that energy so effectively to yourself.
Yeah.
You've just written it off. You've blocked it from being felt. When it's in your field, you're just going to see it as an enemy, and you're not going to feel what it really is to de-escalate it.
Which allows you to transmute it, right?
Exactly.
I mean, what would be, as someone who's focused so much on energy work like this, for someone out there who's like, I've been unwilling to look at this thing, this trauma, this issue from my past for, 20 years, whatever it is, and they're hearing this and they're going, oh gosh, oh man, I've been doing exactly what they're saying. Like, what would be your advice to them to step to it and, start to, start the process of moving through it?
Okay. The first step is first you need to create safety for yourself, right? And what that means, something very practical. Because it is, even though safety is really an emotional problem, you need to create a physical space where you are going to feel safe to completely unload, cry your face off, scream, whatever it is. So create that space first. When you have that space set up, get into it, isolate yourself, tell everyone to leave you alone for however long you need. Put your phone on Do Not Disturb. Don't look at the bloody texts.
Yep.
Right? Once you've got that set up, it does help to do something like light a candle or light incense. It sort of brings a sacredness and a peace to the space.
Yep.
That happens on a fairly psychological level for most people, even if you don't typically do that.
Yep.
So I do recommend it. And then bring the memory of the event into your system, right? And you might notice that your mind tries to distract you and think about other things. Just be patient with yourself, because that's your mind's protection mechanism kicking in using distraction, right? So at that point, just be patient with yourself, just bring it back to the focus. And as you bring the memory in to help flesh it out, remember what things smelled like, what things sounded like, if you were eating something, what it tasted like. That will help bring more of the energy into the memory. And then pay attention to where you have a sensation in the body, right? So you might have a tightness in the chest, you might have a numb feeling in the stomach. And if you want to get, when I say people think of sensations, they're usually looking for something big and obvious. It won't always be big and obvious, and it won't always be pain. Just a quick cliff notes of how to read sensations: temperature, character of motion, speed of motion, right? So if you want to try a very quick one right now, I can show you.
Sure.
Yeah? All right. So think of anything that, you might want to overcome. Anything.
Anything I might want to overcome.
Yeah.
Should it be current? Should it be something from my past that maybe has been lingering? Like
first thing that comes to mind, because that's probably a part of your intuition saying,
Yep.
okay.
Already.
Okay. Now, where are you feeling a sensation in the body? Stomach. Okay. Now, what is the temperature?
In the stomach or overall my whole body?
Oh, in that specific area.
Moderate.
Moderate. Okay. Is it oscillating or is it staying relatively moderate?
Temperature-wise?
Mm-hmm.
Staying the same for the most part, I think.
Okay. Now, the motion that you have going on in there, what is the speed of it?
Sort of like a medium swirling feel.
A medium swirl. Okay, so moderate temperature, medium swirl. Okay, that's a tough one to decode. Yeah, because normally you get hot and cold. Okay, so moderate swirl. So that to me sounds like, if I was, I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to empath it. I'm just going to go with the... All right, so moderate swirl. So a swirl would tell me it's in motion. It's present. Now, is the swirl shrinking or growing, or is it staying exactly the same?
Staying the same.
Staying the same. Okay, so it's something in motion in the present.
It may be shrinking, actually, if I really...
It may be shrinking. Okay. That could be
it is also subtle, so it's hard to say.
Yeah.
Really.
But you're going to see something interesting, because the more you observe it, the more it starts to change. But observing it without judgment's really the important part, right? So it's just observing it like you're sampling a wine or a fancy chocolate, and you're trying to just appreciate the qualities of it. When you can do this with any sensation in your body that represents an emotion, you'll start to find you have less reaction to those, and you start to disarm them. You start to get a sense of what those qualities mean to you as well. So the constant swirl that doesn't change or changes slowly, to me, is that this is an activity that this is a thing, an event, an energy that is in the present right now, and it's in the system. A moderate temperature. Now, usually heat means rage, anger. Cold usually means numbness, trying to stuff it. Somewhere in the middle is a little tough to figure out. I would say it's kind of a point of indecision. Like, I don't know where to put this. I don't really know how I feel about this, but I'm feeling something here, And then so swirl, constant, moderate speed.
I did just get it's in my gut, and I just got like a weird like pain in my gut now.
Interesting. Okay, now describe the pain.
Almost like a stabbing feel. Not hard, more of a blunt, like, like almost like an inner cramp.
Like someone poked you with a finger, not with a knife.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So someone poked you. That could have been my words, poking you with a finger. Sorry. But so pain is usually the word we use to describe an aggregate of intense sensations. Mm-hmm. So it will usually be heat plus intense compression plus a quick spike in heat and a drop in temperature. It would usually be, so pain is usually like 3 or 4 things kind of packed together, So in this case, you've got heat, you've got a pokey thing, and
Just for a moment.
Just for a moment. Okay, so there's no constant motion
Actually,
anymore.
It just came back.
Okay.
It's kind of coming and going.
All right, so my diagnosis of what's happening is the more you're observing it, the more you're lifting that first layer, right? That first layer, which was a swirl, which I would read without empathing as an indecision of position on what that thing means. And then underneath it, what is starting to be revealed is something that is unpleasant, that is probably anger-based because it's heat. And a poking, something in the outside world, possibly what I said, provoking that, oh God, really? No, I don't want to be angry, something like that. So I'm deliberately not using empathing right now because the important part that I want to share with people is that if you can learn to read what your sensations mean, when you're stuck emotionally, you can read those as a clue. And the key is when you find a sensation is not to immediately want to rush to solve it, but just to be patient with it and observe it, even if you want to run away from it. So when you have pain, or what you would call pain, don't run away from it. Sit in it and just explore it. Just go, okay, so I'm pinching my arm right now. There's heat. In fact, if you want to try this as well, just grab a piece of your arm flesh, pinch so it hurts a little bit, and you'll see it's heat, compression, which is often considered uncomfortable, and it's a continual, it's like a solid line. It's not really throbbing, but if you hold it long enough, it starts to throb around the area. Yeah? So all that is doing is helping you start to divorce the idea of pain and these labels from these sensations so you can actually explore them from what they are.
Feedback.
Yes, exactly. It's your video game feedback system in your body. It's telling you what the thing means. But when you were a lot younger, when we were all a lot younger, we took these sensations and boxed them so that we could understand them, and we then didn't re-examine that. And that's one of the benefits of doing this practice. And it's kind of this particular technique is sort of a Frankensteining from something I learned in Vipassana and something I just experienced getting healings from other people and going, right, what's going on here? Maybe I can cobble together something and do, that's basically it.
Cool. So, what's great about that is it's like anything, the more you tune in to something, the more sensitive you're going to get, the more you're going to be able to discern, the more adept, the more you take shots of the basketball, the better you're going to get. Right?
Totally.
So it's like a practice thing. And I think that's a really simple but powerful practice to invite people to start participating in, which is, hey, these things that are there, that are buried in your psyche, are actually stored somewhere in your body. And as soon as you are willing to, take that fear, F-E-A-R, forget everything and run, or face everything and rise, and say, okay, I'm willing, I'm ready to create the space to face and transmute this, what you bravely go into in the right container, in the right setting, in the right time and place, and start to free up. Now you clear up space for new energies to come in that instead of sort of holding you back and limiting you are more expansive, right? 100%. So I think that is a good way to motivate yourself to step and say, okay, I'm ready to look at this, and when you can make it less personal that really, really helps. Like, hey, this is a thing that happened, and it's giving me the opportunity to work through it. And it's not, so often we make everything so personal. And if you start thinking of everything as, more of, feedback that, is giving you an opportunity to take a certain journey, and in this case, a self-healing journey, which maybe the end goal of your soul is like, hey, I want to be brave enough to face things instead of running like my ancestors did and their ancestors before them, and actually like move through this energy to create space for new things to come in, right?
Yep.
Cool. So let's talk a little about one of the things as you've been, staying here for a bit and around here at the Manor a lot. We've seen some different instances. There's definitely a wave of energy that I suppose you could be looked at as psychosis, and we've seen and experienced with folks that have come through, like different levels of what some may or may not view as psychosis or. I think it's really interesting. I saw an article not too long ago where it says shamans go into a mental hospital and don't see people who are broken irreparably, but rather people who are having on the brink of their own awakening. And, the listeners have heard me talk about my child's mother before, which certainly would qualify with that sort of thing, who's now had some sort of a turning of a corner in a good way after a decade. And speaking of Dirk, that was one of the things that he talked about was on my first time having him on was the idea that suggesting she was possessed. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if I believe in that kind of thing. And he's like, oh, no, she's possessed. It's, it's a Levana spirit. And did she do this? Did she say this? Right. Did she cackle like this? Did she? And I'm like, well, yeah. He's like, yeah, that was a spirit who is in physicality, and did those things. And people who are receptive, she can move into. And I'm like, maybe so, Dirk. I don't know. This is some guy first time on the show years ago. And then I talked to my son just after that episode, and I was like, yeah, I just interviewed this guy, Derek. You should hear. It's pretty interesting. He says your mom is possessed by a Levana, some spirit named Levana. And he looked at me like wide-eyed and was like, Dad, that's what she just named my new sister. And of course, I got chills. Yeah. I told Dirk about it later. He's like, yeah, I told you. Yeah, whatever. What's for lunch? And I'm like, damn. All right, I'm listening. So, this idea of possession or even psychosis, and you said something that really stuck out to me is how as a society, and I'm really merging things here. They're really two different topics, but I guess they can overlap too. When we were talking about psychosis and some of the challenges with that, how, we've, as a society, labeled people who have any sort of, let's call it irregular, non-normal, perspective, or can be viewed as, having some level of psychosis or mental health challenges from a normal, whatever that is, perspective, how we just sort of throw those people away in our society. Yeah. And how that's actually, you take the perspective of the shaman who says, oh no, these are people who are on the verge of major breakthroughs. It's like, yeah, I'd just like to hear you talk, that all of that, what you think about all of that and how it pertains to, energy work and healing work.
Sure. Okay. So my first, I had my own run-in with mental health, and that caused me to have a heart attack at 28, and
What?
Yeah. Oh, I didn't tell you that?
No.
Okay. All right.
You had a heart attack at 28?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know, it was weird. And I had a couple of heart problems before. I had a lot of there was a period of time where I had a lot of physical problems.
Wow.
And I didn't know why. I thought it was because I was some kind of wimp because I saw these action movies, and action movies were like my reference for getting stronger. It was really stupid. I'd see all these montages, and in the montages, they don't show you the rest period when someone's training, right? It's just like, oh, I'm lifting myself. And,
Too much Eye of the Tiger on repeat.
Yeah, there you go. No bit where they're sitting there drinking a smoothie from a straw watching TV. So I had no idea I had a mental health issue at the time. And because I couldn't experience the signal for anxiety, my body couldn't tell me I was going through anxiety when I was going on a run. And I went on a run, say 3 or 4 times in a row, and it wouldn't be an issue if not for the fact that my body was asking to rest because I was pushing it all the bloody time. And then, one day, just running along the beach, and then I feel like Mike Tyson smacks me in the back of my ribs.
Wow.
And I have this overwhelming sense in my body that's like a voice going, lay the fuck down.
Wow.
And I go, okay. And I laid the fuck down. And I looked at my watch. And I blinked and 45 minutes had passed.
Wow.
And my blood felt like it was on fire. My body was killing me. Like I'd never experienced that in my life.
Wow.
Scary. But I also didn't have medical insurance and I was a freelance writer. So I was making fuck all. I got on the bus and I went home.
Wow.
And I slept, I think, for a full day.
Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't know what was going on then. And I didn't tell anyone and I didn't think about it after. Until the ex did a read on me. And she went, oh, there's this thing that happened. And I went, fuck, you're right. That did happen. And yeah, that was kind of a bit of a wake-up call. But I got diagnosed with this alexithymia thing. And when I was still in the throes of dealing with the rage stuff, I went to Durek. And Durek said, this is a protector spirit. And I said, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense. What about all these things and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no. You asked for a spirit to come to protect you from these things. And that seed was planted, and I started looking at every mental thing as, well, these are all protections, really. I'm pretty sure everything we believe is a protection. Everything we encode in ourselves is a protection. We're trying to cope with the world because on some level, fundamentally, we know that it's all bollocks, you know? Like the land and the nature is brilliant, but all of this, the system that we have above it that's overlaid is a fucking joke. It's completely against nature. It doesn't make sense for anyone to follow this fucking system. You pretty much have to, it's like jamming a very large foot into a tiny shoe. That's what whenever I felt like I was going in for a corporate meeting, I felt like I was doing that with my brain and my psyche. It was awful. So every time I would look at these people, I just started to, go, all right, ADD, what does that mean? Okay, he doesn't want to be in the present. Why doesn't he want to be in the present? Oh, he doesn't want to be in the present because he will feel something that's really trying to come out and be made present.
Interesting.
Or bipolar disorder. What could that be? And again, this is just me. I'm not saying this is what it is. I'm saying this is my guesstimate of what it is. Let's say you've got the bipolar disorder variant where someone gets extremely angry all of a sudden, like violent, scary, right? And then on the other side, they're a flipping field mouse. And,
right.
That probably comes from having an incredibly overpowering, overwhelming energy around them when they grew up, and them having to become big to overcome it or push it away or get rid of it or whatever it was. But in a really short space of time, in a really exaggerated manner, basically trying to be the Incredible Hulk,
right,
without any of the superpowers,
right.
Yeah? So I started looking at it from that perspective, and then all of a sudden, the stigma of mental health labels went away. It just started looking redundant.
Yeah,
or
even just like it's even if you think about it, it's like not fully understanding, trying to talk about something that you're fully missing the real point. You're not getting to the root at all.
Not at all.
You're talking about the effect instead of the cause, in a sense.
Right. It's like you're looking for a box to put in. I mean, I'm not saying people are doing this maliciously. This is training. This is polarization training we've had systematically ingrained for a really long time.
Yep.
We try to put things in boxes because that helps us understand them, and it's easy and it's lazy and it's quick.
Yep.
Right. But it's a really crappy way to deal with people with mental health issues.
Yeah.
Because you don't know their story. They might never tell you, and they might have even blocked some of it from themselves.
Yeah.
But if you look at them like, I'm protecting something when I behave like this, or I was taught to protect something and I behaved like this, and that's what helped me protect that thing.
Yeah.
It's easier to understand where they're coming from and what they need to slowly
unwind,
out. Because that's all it is. They need to take down that armor. That's what's fucking them up.
Yeah.
But it's very complex.
Yeah. I love that. I love that perspective, and I think it's needed. I think we'll look back in the future with much more of a lens like that. Like, oh, we didn't fully understand. You even go back further back and it was like, oh, throw them in the padded room with a straitjacket,
right. Yeah.
And so, maybe we're coming a ways from that, but there's still ways to go with how it's all viewed. And
lobotomies, remember those? Fuck, they still do those.
Do they?
Apparently.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
And that's supposed to be getting rid of the emotional connection to the brain, right? As far as I understand it, I could be wrong.
Wow.
But you
cutting out a part of the brain, though, like
it's a bit stupid.
Yeah,
you know?
Especially something as malleable as the brain.
Right. Yeah.
Like,
here's this thing we still don't understand. Let's cut this bit. It'll be fine.
It'll be good.
Yeah. Yay, humans, good work.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that? We're now reanimating insects in amber. Okay, yeah, nothing bad's going to happen from that. We did not release a bunch of movies about what could go wrong.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. Just keep doing it.
Let's talk about a few other, as we sort of wind down here, some of the other things. You know, speaking of fallacies, I know it's something I've heard you speak about or mention before, like uncommonly known spiritual fallacies that people don't necessarily talk about.
Okay. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, let's share. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
So I've got quite a list, but I'll just give you you cut me off, all right, when it's time. So, right, you've got those people who think they're reincarnations of gods and goddesses and angels and so forth, right? They're a lot of fun. Because most of the time you're very aware that they definitely are not any of these things. But that can come from a legitimate place. I had an experience where if I hadn't been thinking about it and questioning myself for a period of time, I might have fallen into that trap, right? And generally, if you have the ability to channel, sometimes a very powerful energy will make itself known by coming through your body. But when it does that, it removes your sense of self in a really profound way, because all of a sudden you feel super fucking powerful. I don't mean like someone's just given you a Monster energy drink and injected you with cocaine. I mean like you feel you can do shit that isn't physically, you know. Yeah. And it's a high and it's great. And to all of a sudden realize, oh wow, I'm so special to have been given this energy or whatever. It can get a little bit confusing. And some people will then take that and think, oh, I guess I'm this being now.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
Because you'll get visuals like they're your own memories. They'll stir you like traumas you've been through, you know? And that's usually, for many people who are going through like past life digging, they will have very profound emotional reactions to those past life memories. Yeah. And to them, that's the confirmation that it's real. When you have a powerful being come through your body and you're set to be a channel, which a lot of people are, it seems.
More and more. It's like...
Yeah. Really?
Like 50% of people now I know are channels.
Yeah, it is getting like that, you know? When you have that ability and you don't yet understand it, and, you know, a certain being just keeps coming up, you start to wonder, am I this being? Because when you lose your sense of self, you start to wonder, well, what the fuck am I? Am I this thing? And then, of course, your insecurities are going to try and latch onto that.
Sure.
So that the fallacy that I'm really tackling there is that you do get people who are definitely full of it when they say they're reincarnated, this, that, and the other. But it might have come from a real place where they weren't guided. They didn't have anyone who'd been through this and been on the other side and gone, yeah, I'm definitely not this angel of death. Yeah, if I was, I'd probably be doing that as my job and not pissing about on the internet, you know.
Can I offer a perspective on that?
Always.
So here's how I view that sort of thing, because I experienced this myself as I had my own awakening, started having crazy messages and synchronicities on a level that I'm like, no one around me's having, and I'm like... I feel like it's almost like a rite of passage for a lot of people who are having their spiritual awakening. What I call the Christ complex, or spirit. It can even turn, it can morph into spiritual narcissism, which is what I kind of how I put what you're talking about. And I think you start to understand. You go through that thing of like, oh my gosh, I'm the one, for me, going back mid 2000s or whatever. Oh my gosh, I'm the one. I'm going to wake up this planet and do these profound things. And it's like, and then it sort of sinks in, but everyone's the one. and wait a minute. So then it's like, okay, then that brings that very necessary humility piece to really tap into power. Now, when you talk about, past lives, future lives, parallel lives, it is pretty confusing for our mere mortal brains to sort of wrap around and understand this timeless state, right? Because are you familiar with the short story The Egg?
No.
I'll have to show it to you. And you guys on the show have heard me talk about it before. You can read it, but I recommend going and watching. There's a YouTube. Someone turned it into a short, like 10-minute, little movie, and God is this cute little English girl, and so basically, this guy, he dies, he crosses over to the other side. It's just him and God, and she's like, okay, it's just me and you in this universe, and now you're going to go back as someone else on Earth, and he basically realizes, like, oh, he plays every role possible. Hitler and those he killed, Gandhi and everyone he helped, and and once you've played every single character, then you've grown enough to be born to the next chapter of your existence. So for me, I think about it when I start thinking about, I was Cleopatra, or I was Jesus, or any of these. It's like, I think from one perspective, for me, Dan, I think there's truth to that.
Of course.
Like, we all play it. It's kind of like how more recently have you played that character, or is it in the future? Like in the short story The Egg, he goes back to, now this time he died in the 90s, this character in this story, and then it's like, now you're going to go back to 30 years ago and play some woman in the 70s or something like that. She's like, hold on, well, time doesn't matter. So it's like, kind of like Dan or Brandon or you listening, you're a character, you're an avatar that has a certain energetic frequency as a character. And once a soul is evolved to a certain point, it can then drop into that vessel because it's a close enough vibrational match to the storyline of that particular character. So that's kind of how I view it. And it's like, so when someone says, I was so-and-so, it's like, there's a part of me that says, very much a reaction like you. Like, no, I don't think so. Like, and then there's another part of me as well. In eternity, it's all you, and at some level, that's a connection point, and you've played that role. So it gets
it's messy.
It gets messy to wrap your brain around. But I especially if you subscribe to this idea that you're going to play every role, which is like almost horrifying to think about in some way, and exhilarating in another. I had a girlfriend who one time she was on her medicine journey, psychedelic journey, ayahuasca. I can't remember what substance she had used, but she basically just had the experience of popping into all these different lifetimes and experiencing their death, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. And it was like she was experienced being that person in that moment. So it's like, who knows? I guess once we can really peek behind the curtain, we'll know fully. But I think at some level, personally, I think we will play every role. It's kind of like how recently when I cross back over, I think it'll be like, okay, cool, you leveled up in the video game to this much, and this character in the 1400s is a match if you want to drop into that body, or you can go to this other planet in 5,000 years from now, and that's a vibrational match, and play that out. And so and at some point you play Jesus, and you play, all of them. So it's kind of this divine dichotomy perspective for me. It's like, depending on the vantage point from which you're looking, these relative truths, like you and I are separate. That's true. From another perspective, you and I are one. That's true. So what vantage point are we speaking about when we look at this idea of I was Cleopatra, right? Well,
definitely, Sorry.
Does that make sense?
Yes. I would say, and I want to be clear, it's not, I don't believe that isn't possible. Yeah. It's that I've just seen cynical versions of that idea.
I'm with you 100%, where my first reaction is like, your really ego is so invested in what you're saying in this moment. Right. And I think of the character you're referencing as being this very evolved being, and you are here I think I just saw you slip like something in your pocket that's not your, doing something like, I don't know, I'm just making that up. But, just like the person is not that impressive in their own evolution that you're sort of witnessing, and yet they're, Archangel Michael incarnate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they're probably not. But that's...
Not at this time, anyway.
That's probably my favorite.
Not in this now.
Nah, they got a couple more years, a couple more lives probably.
Well, what's next for you? What's as you on your journey? What's most alive? What's most exciting?
So the project I'm most excited about right now. You've had a tiny piece of that when we were going through the emotional decoding. I'm putting together a system that anyone can use, specifically skeptics, right? So the business I was in, skeptics everywhere. Engineers, almost always skeptics. Rarely ever any religious anything. So they've been a great challenge. And I've actually got a test subject in Arizona who's the oldest engineer I know.
Ooh.
And I've been cracking him very slowly.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, Jake, if you're listening. So I'm basically building this system for them. Because if they can use it, anyone can use it. And it's no fluff, no... you don't have to subscribe to any dogma or anything like that. And in fact, one of the things I really like to do in this exploration is find out the universal truths between all systems. I don't want to just get Mac OS and PC. I want to get into the fucking binary and figure out what it all is. And guess what? Yes, love is probably the most universal energy you can use in anything.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, I mean that from a very practical perspective. I wasn't taught by anyone about how to get rid of entities or anything like that. And I just remember, I had an entity attack me in a waking, a lucid dream once.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it made my entire left side of my body cold. I grabbed the little bugger, right? It looked like something out of a horror movie. And I beamed like Care Bear love to it from my heart. I shit you not. And it freaked out. It was going, what's going on? This isn't supposed to happen. I'm a demonic thing. You're supposed to be scared. I'm going, no, have some fucking love. And I'm blasting it. She transforms and I let her go. And she's sort of going, what was that? This is really weird. Okay, I'm going to exit the lucid dream now.
Yeah.
So I did. And the left side of my body was still cold, but it was starting to warm up.
Yeah.
So I test these things out on myself, use myself as a lab rat, and that's why I'm able to put this together.
Cool.
And there's one little piece I wanted to share with you about, when you're decoding your emotions. So if you do that practice from earlier, you might find yawning, half yawning, burping, coughing, farting, all kinds of physical manifestations might happen. The most common one is needing to phlegm, needing to spit into something. You need to allow those things to happen, and each of those actually is a tell as well. So if you have a burp that burns the throat, that's a rageful pain wanting to leave. If it's a yawn, it's usually it's words you don't want to say out loud. Yeah, like a half yawn, actually. Sorry, the half yawn is like the restricted air wanting to leave the body. So there's all these little tells even in our releases. And coughs is like there's a strain, there's a wanting to. It's like a manifestation of something having pushed through.
Yeah.
That's been repressed, so it comes out a little violently. Yeah. So I just wanted to add that to that piece. Cool. But yeah, so long story short, I'm putting together this piece and it's almost done, and I'm going to share it with everyone when it's done. And I'm going to put it in video games too. Cool. Yeah.
Well, very, very cool. I look forward to seeing that. And, one of the things that I like to ask is sort of as a last little story time is any stories of synchronicity, serendipity, positive paranormal story, something that feels fun to share?
Okay. Positive paranormal. I've got a good synchronicity one. I mean,
cool.
It's all right.
Yeah. Well, any is good.
Okay. So I had this weird feeling before I went on my travels. I was going to meet girls who had the same birthday as me. I rarely meet anyone with the same birthday as me, and I don't know why.
What's your birthday?
May 7th. Okay. So
someone out there listens like, oh, me.
One listener out of 100,000. Yep. So I didn't know where I was. There was a point where in the journey, I was going to go, all right, universe, you're going to tell me where the fuck to go. All right. So after I was done with Egypt, I wanted to know, right, what's next? I know I want to hit Thailand at some point. Maybe I'll do Bosnia and that crazy pyramid over there. And I kept hearing about Bali, and I went, fuck it, I'll go to Bali. So I went to Bali, and still no girl with the same birthday, but I kept bumping into this one lady. It was brilliant, and she started going on about her name's Gaia Ma. She does all these what do you call those things? Eco
villages.
Thank you. Yes, building eco villages and sustainable things.
Cool.
And she starts telling me about this place called Koh Phangan. And I'm like, okay, that's in Thailand. Maybe I'll go there. Sure, I'll put it on the list as a maybe. And then everyone I start meeting starts talking about Koh Phangan. So
I feel like that's the movie. I mean, the big town from the movie. Have you seen The Beach?
Yes.
Is that the big town?
It absolutely is.
Yeah. Okay. I remember. Yeah. I watched that for the first time in years. Speaking of reality being a video game too, it has like a weird sequence in it where everything turns into a video game.
Yep.
Yeah. That's a great movie, by the way. If you haven't seen it, recommend it.
No, sure. That's a piece of the synchronicity.
Oh, okay.
That specific reference.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
So I go to this island, and because Gaia tells me about it, and I love this woman. She's I trust her opinion, and this other girl who I get involved with at the time tells me about it. So I go, and it turns out I meet her there, and for my birthday, she's like, I'm going to surprise you. Okay, cool. Where are we going? She goes, we're going to go on a 2-hour jungle hike. I'm going to take you to some beautiful, secluded part of the island no one can get to unless they know where it is. And blah, blah, blah.
The beach.
It fucking is. I've been wanting to go there all my life. What? The reason I wanted to go to Thailand was because of the beach.
Yeah, it's so good. Leo DiCaprio, it's like one of the best.
But they filmed it in the PP Islands.
Ah.
Right? And that's where I was going to go. Or Phuket, or one of the... It was in one of those... I think it was the PP Islands. So I was looking to go there. And she's telling me while we go through the jungle hike, oh yeah, this was in the beach. And I'm all, are you fucking kidding me? This is where I've wanted to come.
Yeah, how cool.
She bloody dragged me there. And it was all because I helped her move her motorbike down a bunch of stairs.
Wow.
But that night, at a party, I met a girl with the same birthday.
On your birthday?
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
And then it just kept happening.
And then she showed you this map to go to where no one knows about to go. If you saw the movie, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But wow, that's fun. I love that.
Yeah. And I ended up staying on that beach for a while. I loved it, man.
I bet.
Yeah, you get up at 4 a.m., stick your arms in the water, and you get plankton, and then I'll just go have a naked swim and watch the sunrise, and it's fucking beautiful, man.
Yeah. Wow. It makes me want to go.
Yeah. It's worth it. I'll give you tips.
Yeah. Cool. Well, this has been awesome, Dan. You are every bit as entertaining as I knew you would be.
Oh,
I know everyone out there enjoys it, and of course would love to connect and follow, as you continue to bring, all your offerings to the world. What you were just describing sounds really, really cool. What's the best way for people to connect and follow you?
So on Instagram, I have a kind of hybrid personal businessy account called The Magic Mechanic. That's kind of the nickname I gave myself to mechanize all the magical things into things anyone can use. And otherwise, soulhardware.com is my healing services website.
Cool.
And that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I do have one last question for you.
Do it, bro.
60 seconds or less. What is the meaning of life according to Daniel Boutros?
It's a video game, and you've chosen an avatar, and you chose that avatar because that avatar has very specific challenges built in. Mine is very stubborn. I have to solve the stubborn problem. Yours may be a different problem, and also to find the good in it, because stubbornness can be useful. But anyway, you figure that out, and you become a walking beacon of energetic medicine for those who are suffering with that issue, to help them through it, so that we all rise, so that we're basically all little tiny cells of a giant god, and cells in the human body, which is a microcosm for the larger potential God body that I'm just making up.
I love it.
Have tiny light-emitting particles in them called biophotons. And when you are at your healthiest, when you're at your most loved, your biophoton particle leakage is very low. We, in essence, could see ourselves as walking cells. So the more that we learn to love in ourselves through all the things that we judge in ourselves, which looks like it's in others, but it's really in us, we become more filled up with light, and we eventually become a giant unified blob, second god, something or other. And that's really what we're doing. We're just tiny little cellular slaves helping a god have a partner because the god is bored. But, that's pretty much...
It's lonely being God.
Yes.
And I love that. That could very well be my favorite meaning of life answer, Dan.
Thank you.
You never disappoint. All of you out there listening, I know you're not disappointed. I'm certainly not disappointed with you connecting, continuing to share this podcast with your family, friends, and yeah, just tuning in. You're amazing. You're beautiful reflections. Until next time, journey well. Love you all so much. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you about the game with the universe on our website. You can choose the first number that comes to your mind, and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time. And if you go to positivehead.com/universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and greatest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to spark the curiosity of friends and family by having them choose a number, so they'll hopefully go and check out their number as well, which I greatly appreciate because it helps us to spread the word about the podcast. Once again, the address is positivehead.com/universe. And as a quick reminder, if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them almost every day, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I cannot stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so. I have my favorite, the appleberry shake, at least 5 times a week. Once again, to learn more about the Purium transformation, go to positivehead.com/transformation. Or if you want to keep it simple and just try out my favorite, the appleberry shake, you can go straight over to ishoppurium.com and be sure to use code positivehead for 25% off. I'll spell that for you. It's ishoppurium.com. And be sure to use your Positive Head 25% coupon code.